Hello, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to our next episode of Strong Women in IT. Today, we are discussing super important topic that I believe everyone finds interesting and will find something for themselves. Pros and cons of building a fintech company. Because when we think about money, we all work for it, spend it. And today, fintechs and business connected with finances try to change the way we think about finances, about how we spend our money and how we earn our money, but also how we think about it. And to talk about it, we invited great speakers, women who are super experienced in their fields. And let me introduce you first, Monika Kania, Growth Director for CE Baltic and Nordic countries at Vodeno. Hello, Monika.
Hello, thank you for having me here.
And Thea van Oosterhout, founder of Mariposa, I hope I pronounce it properly, country ambassador, Netherlands at European Women Payments Network. Hello, Thea.
Hi, thank you for having me and the warm invitation. Yeah.
So, ladies, without further ado, let's talk about this topic, and let's start with your experience, your background. So, how your journey in fintech finance companies look like? Tia, can you start and present us how your career started?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I live and work in the Netherlands, so my career also started in the Netherlands at one of the three bigger banks in the Netherlands, named ABN AMRO.com. ABN AMRO, I held different positions, varying from sales to managerial and later on product development at headquarters in Amsterdam. And from that product development, I came in contact with a lot of technical solutions, as well as the cooperation with either other banks. So we have a lot of interbanking solutions in Netherlands, as well as with external partners. And moving forward from ABN AMRO, I started to work for CM.com, which is a tech company founded based on messaging services, so SMS and over the top, but also had a voice over IP platform, chat services, and a data platform. And within that company, I was responsible for several innovations regarding payments, setting up a business for identity services, and combining the two with ticketing and our chatbot marketing services. And now since last year, I started my own, so I'm doing it for myself and helping other clients move forward.
So lots of projects, lots of people. Next, I will ask you about the lesson learned, but let's meet how Monika career looks like. So Monika, can you tell us more how your career in finances in the fintech industry started?
Yes, so my career in the fintech world started 12 years ago. From launching my fintech company Exchanger. In the first version, it was the marketplace that enabled consumers and companies to compare different fees rates from global money transfer companies. It was the time 12 years ago when nobody spoke so much about fintech. So originally, it was the marketplace that was used by single users, but very shortly we understood that combining customer acquisition with scalability is not that easy. So I took a decision to pivot from marketplace to API provider. And at the time, nobody spoke about embedded economy, embedded finance. So it was extremely challenging and difficult to explain to our partners, money operators, and to our customers that were big corporates, big fintech portals, online web portals, that we will connect with the infrastructure via API and display our product. But we're very successful. After 3 months, we had the first client, largest information portal from Poland. Then we covered the entire Polish market. We made some great projects also outside of Poland, in the UK, in Malaysia, in Dubai. I spent at Exchanger 6 years, and then I joined Revolut as the head of business development for Revolut Business in Poland. Amazing journey, extremely challenging to work with so fast-growing company. I spent at Revolut 6-7 months. Then COVID came, so everything changed. And I started cooperating with different tech companies as consultant. In 2021, I joined Ion and Vodeno, twin companies, and as the head of sales in the first version for Ion Bank, and now as growth director for C, Nordics and Baltics for Vodeno.
I think, Monika, we met first when you work in the exchange, I think, when you were a strong woman in IT in our first edition of our report. So, ladies, it was a really long journey to be where you are right now. Thea, can you tell us some your lesson learned from those projects, from those banks, from those change we have nowadays? Because I can believe that the way we look at our finances change for this time.
Yeah, I think the most important lesson learned for me was to not overthink. So if you start to overthink the solution and what it should be and what features you could add before going live, then you're going to stall. And then what is going to be live is going to be, too little, too late. So I think the most important lesson learned for me is to just go for it and learn by doing. And it makes you more flexible as well, makes you more open for suggestions from clients, third parties, because otherwise you're so locked in your own proposition, it becomes your baby, and it's too difficult to let go and adjust and adapt to the market. That's my most valuable lesson, and you cannot do it alone. So don't be scared of competitors, but look at them to see if you can use them as distribution channels or find a nice cooperation to scale the product quicker.
I can imagine that it's not difficult to fall in love into your project. How to be, let's say, bulletproof here? How not to fall in love in your projects?
Yeah.
Do you have some secret sauce for it?
To be honest, it's still one of my biggest faults, I believe, because there's still one project within ABN AMRO I still believe in that I think the business model was wrong. So there we go. I always find an excuse why it could have been a success. But I think the other side of the medaille is to be able to see and be creative in finding new ways to have the beginning of the concept, because probably there is a question or you are solving a problem, but you just haven't found the right proposition or the right product market fit yet. But if you can go back to the core and back to the essence, you will find a way to make it work, or you have to just sit on it and wait when the timing is right, and then be able to move again. So maybe it's not the biggest secret is to maybe not definitely let go of it, but keep it in the back of your head, and then when you feel the timing is right, get it out and scale it.
Okay, super. Monika, what are your lessons learned? What gives you this 6 years of exchange, Revolut, now Ion and Vodeno? What's your lessons learned right now?
Oh, many of them. I mean, starting as a single founder, it was extremely challenging. So definitely, if you plan to start a company, definitely find some business partners and some shareholders that can support you. Definitely find some people who can support you with knowledge, with the same effort that you put in building a company. What's critical, I absolutely agree with Thea. It's all about thinking a little bit out of the box. So if you have the same strategy as all the others on the market, so the results will be the same. If you think differently, so you can expect also different results. Prepare very much the MVP, the first version of the product, before launching the very, very complex ecosystem of functionalities in your product. Because if you launch the very limited number of functionalities, you can test it very quickly, gather feedback, and then then adjust it to the market needs, to the needs of your customers. So testing, validating, being bold, definitely, but having also respect, because there are many competitors on the market. So you definitely need to find your own way to go to the market and to communicate with the customers. But you have to also understand what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses.
Well, so much information. I hope that everyone who is listening to us will find this webinar useful. So we know your experience right now, we know your background. So let's talk about what is happening nowadays. What will happen in the future? Because there are so many trends about the fintech. Before we went live, we talked about so many areas of fintech industry. So are there any trends that you strongly observe, keep your fingers for these trends, and how do you think these trends you are for, you observe, will or can evolve in the future? Thea, what type of trends do you observe right now?
Yeah, well, first of all, I find it difficult to make a choice, of course, because that otherwise would not fit my profile. But I've tried to narrow it down to 2 trends for now, because otherwise we can sit here for another 2 hours maybe. So the ones I would like to address in this webinar would be the next step in open banking, because open banking has been quite a topic for last, I think almost 10 years now. And I feel like we're now moving away from just the payments area to all the other data elements as well. Especially now with the current economic situation, you can imagine that a lot more need for simpler financial management systems is growing. And in order to do so, we would need insights in data of all other financial services as well. So think of the insurances, mortgages, lending, pensions. We do see, or research shows, that a lot of people, or we, tend to think that we are quite capable of understanding our finance, and we are very literate on it. But in truth, we are not, because it is still quite complex. It is also of some companies the business model to keep it complex, of course. So there's a huge opportunity for fintech companies to make it more simpler and accessible for the rest of us. So that's one of the trends I would like to address. And next to that, but that's because my background is in payments and identity, so it would be strange not to address this one. But you see payments and identity merging more and more. The first, well-known topic is, of course, tokenization, where the payment and authentication is in one step. And you will see this evolve, of course, because, I also look into the developments of Web3, and what if I could tokenize my card or combine it with the biometrics used at the device I'm currently holding or I'm sitting in, for instance, a car. Quite recently, Mercedes, the car Mercedes-Benz, launched Mercedes Pay. It's not really a one-step payment, to be honest, but it's a very interesting development where they use the Mercedes Me ID and they connect it to my payment profile. If you combine it with developments of Web3, well, that's next step conversational commerce for you. So I'm really looking forward to all the possibilities and user cases they will enable.
Yeah, but I think this regulatory part is so complex here. But maybe not go so deeper into this case. Monika, can you tell us about your trends that you're observing, and maybe try to foresee how they can evolve in the future right now?
There are definitely several exciting fintech trends that are currently shaping the industry. It will be extremely difficult from our position here to oversee. What I'm a big fan of, I'm really big fan of infrastructure as a service in general. I think it's the really monumental change. that gave the ability for fintechs and non-fintechs to provide customers with financial products. So an infrastructure as a service, it very much lowers down the entrance barriers for fintech companies and for all the market players to support clients with more intuitive, better personalized financial products, thinking about banking as a service providers. They do support both licensed companies that want to expand in the number of the services, that want to expand geographically, but also e-commerces that started being the kind of banks for us. Looking just at Apple, what we had a few days ago is that Apple just enabled in the US market deposits. So Apple will soon become a bank. So it's not if and when, it's happening right now. So I talked about big techs and their role in this fintech world a few years ago to my students at Koźmiński University. And we're discussing, okay, so what's the role of big techs? So big techs, thanks to cooperation with the technology providers, are becoming banks. We can observe many financial products and services offered by providers of services we can use on a daily basis, e-commerce companies, logistic companies. So soon, I'm not saying that banks will disappear, absolutely not, but they would definitely need to change their role from the first-line service providers and the kind of end-to-end relations with customers to enablers, I would say, to the providers of services for the other players on the market. So definitely the first trend that I do see is the infrastructure of as a service, the enablement of infrastructure to serve customers with payments. And definitely artificial intelligence, machine learning, personalizations are the kind of trends that will play a huge role, because what we do, it's always backed on data. It should be backed on data. When taking any decisions in fintech, in e-commerce, in any space, we definitely need to use data to build the services that are highly required by customers, that are as user-friendly as possible, that are perfectly matching with their needs. So definitely these trends are something what I think that would be important for many purposes, including also fraud detection, customer service, investment advisory, and as AI and machine learning technology continues to improve. So it's always also expected to become even more important for today's industry.
Yeah, and I believe it actually offers a lot of opportunities for banks as well, because of course I recognize what you're saying with Apple and now Twitter, company X, very interesting, but all the hyper personalization also needs or makes the need for trust and commitment and knowledge even higher. So I do believe that it will enable banks in connecting or reconnecting with their customers again as well. So there will be a variety of services, and I do believe that tech companies are in general more focused, client-focused in their solutions, where banks didn't used to client-focus, or well, they did, but more on the content and not in the customer service related way. I think they shifted a lot, and this does offer them a lot of opportunities as well.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I mean, it's also about how fintechs and banks can learn from each other, what they can learn. I mean, looking at the examples of Revolut, how Revolut changed the approach to the customer service, approach to user experience. So the banks also see that this is absolutely important for the users to have as simple as possible services, to have amazing customer experience, and they definitely need to improve. Because otherwise, from first choice banks, they would become second, third choice banks, and they would definitely play a smaller role than before.
Okay, like this. So here's a great question, I think, because you mentioned open banking. Now you mentioned that Revolut. So should banks afraid of fintechs, or fintechs should afraid of traditional banks that we know? How do you see potential for cooperation? Do you think banks compete with startups, fintech startups, or they find a place for cooperation? Yeah, how do you see it? You have the biggest experience in bank here.
Yeah, in my opinion, it's just the ongoing tango they are holding. They kind of love each other and they hate each other, but they do need each other. So it's like a relationship where the banks, on the one hand, are almost driven to focus on the KYC and the onboarding and the compliance processes. But in the meantime, they have a whole other plate, a role in our economy as well, which it goes further than only payments and insight in transactions. But on the other hand, they are so big and slow. A lot of services can be speed up by fintechs. So I I think it would suit them not to keep looking at only competition. And I do see it in the Netherlands. We have several successful startups where banks and fintech companies work together. But it's always a challenge because it's always difficult to see how we can make the cake bigger instead of focusing on the part of the cake you have and you want to keep having that one. So it's a difficult tango, but an interesting one.
So love-hate relationship. Monika, how do you see your company offers something like banking as a service? This is not traditional bank, so it has completely changed the way we think about our money management. But let's talk about the cooperation bank and fintechs. How do you see?
I do agree with you that it is a challenging topic, definitely. So collaboration is extremely important because fintechs can bring innovation. Fintechs are very agile and very customer centric. Traditional financial institutions, they do bring resources, they do bring expertise, they do bring established customer bases. So working together can definitely lead to new opportunities, greater efficiency, improved customer service. So I do see the role of fintechs when I think about the collaboration. I do see the role of fintechs as enablers, as the supporters, maybe this way, as providers of some services that banks can implement relatively fast when investing money, time, and resources in some development. Because, as Thea said before, it's really complicated. They have huge issues with the legacies. So it's much easier to use the services delivered by so agile technology companies than to start something new from scratch. So definitely what I do observe on the market is that banks started offering and opening the kind of R&D labs and startup sandboxes, correct, absolutely. Sandboxes, startup focus programs, so they can check if some startups that do fulfill all their needs in a specific field. So it's very good. What I think that's still our great wish and future is the implementation, the real implementation of the services provided by fintech startups, because it's also not that easy. You need to apply with all the requirements from bank side, with the regulatory compliance and so you definitely from the startup side you need to be prepared, and depending on which stage the startup is, the startups have resources or they don't have it. So definitely you need to also as a startup validate if you are ready for cooperation of bank, and banks, what do they want to achieve. I think that banks should start investing more in startups, because on this hand they can support their own get supported by in terms of their own resources, plus to integrate the startup services much faster.
Yeah, and they all have a risk on not having enough talent and people to work for us. And then the banks are now so challenged with all, at least in the Netherlands, I assume it's also in the rest of Europe. But there's a lot of challenge on all the compliance processes and just keep finding people that are willing to do all the work. And of course, AI will help us, but we need to have the basis correct first. So it was all promising, but let's just make sure we have all the data and we recognize it before we can elaborate on it. But we can help each other, because a fintech is focused on only a certain part of the customer service or the product. So they can help scale. And they have knowledge on certain market aspects. So they speak a certain language, which makes it easier for a bank to sell the products. They know more on how to implement it in certain software packages. And they can help scale the product in purely a technical way. And they are, in general, more willing to cooperate. So they are more, they are quicker to seek partnerships and have a sustainable growth of that product, where banks are by nature not educated to do so.
Yes, and there is another challenging part of it. On one hand, we have innovation and need to grow, need to give and or suggest new solutions, new potential, ideas how we can work with our money. On the other hand, we have risk management. We have data security. We have problems with how we can take care of our personal data. How to be innovative and mitigate risk connected with fintech growing industry, how to create a company that is valuable, that others want to work with me. Monika, how do you see this question? How do you find answers to this question? I know it may be not easy, but try as much as possible to answer to it.
Yeah, it's a very complex question because, as you mentioned, data privacy and security are extremely important when you think about the fintech project. So financial information is in general very sensitive, and the customers expect that the data is kept safe, right, and very secure. So as a result, it's very essential to take all the necessary measures to protect customers' information, like conduct, for example, risk assessments to identify potential threats to data privacy, to security. It involves analyzing of potential risks, impacts of data breach. Implement data encryption, if we just think about security again. So all the sensitive customer data should be encrypted, both in transit and at rest. And it includes data stored on services, databases, backups. Definitely also the hosting environment for fintech projects should be secure with regular security updates and patches. So the hosting providers should also provide secure data centers. Multi-factor authentication as extra layer of security for user logins, requiring users to provide two or even more forms of authentication to access the account. Access controls implementation, so implement constant monitoring systems that should be in place to detect some suspicious activity, plus performing regularly the security audits. So all this sensitive customer information definitely should be addressed, and by taking these steps, we can ensure that the customer information is kept safe and secure. When thinking about the fintechs that are willing to sell their services globally or to cooperate with big companies. So it's also about the credibility. So what kind of team members do you have? What experience do you have? How to ensure that the customer data is saved securely? It's not an easy thing, definitely, but also it is a part of the culture of the company because security is also should be the mindset of all the company employees and members.
Yeah, and I
it's
also
a long list.
if I could add, I always find it interesting to look at it from the point of view: do I really need all the details, or can I work with a trusted party giving me the answer to a certain question? So, for instance, if I'm someone, a company handing out mortgages, is it then very necessary for me to know your exact salary slip and have all that data? Or if a trusted party could just answer the question does Monika have at least amount of euros a year or a month? And does she have at least less than 10,000 euro of outstanding debts? And there are certain metrics you can use. And if you can have the conclusions and the answers of a trusted party, then you don't need to have all the data. And then you minimize your risk. But we are now so focused on data, and we want to have it all, but then we don't know how to store it properly. And next to all the privacy issues, but even in a technical way, store it properly, and then being able to get it out of the systems and making it into a understandable conclusion or customer journey, that's extremely difficult. And the real question is, do you really need it? Because aren't you making things too complex?
The one question, I would agree. I mean, the one question would be, do you need it? And if you do need it, of course, I would agree with Thea that solution would be to use some experienced service providers that can support you in this, because being very transparent, there aren't. If you are specialized in one field, you can be specialized also in all the other fields, and you don't need it. You can. And that's the collaboration here, the aspect of collaboration here. So you can use the experts in this field, combine the services to your core service, and sell it then to the end customer. So it's a very regular practice, even in the banking as a service field, that we do use many service providers just to support the customers with as broad services as we can, because otherwise we would spend 100 years on development. and we need to manage costs, we need to manage risks, we need to manage the appropriate product development. So definitely when using and cooperating with the service providers that are experts in their fields, it's the best match.
Yeah.
Okay. So today webinar is about pros and cons of building a fintech company. We talk about risk. We talk about different things you have to remember about data privacy, etc., etc. So, ladies, why do you work in this industry? Because when someone could join this webinar and listen, you have to remember about this, that. There is so much thing. Oh, I have headache after all. Not me, but maybe someone who is listening to us. So, what are the pros? What's the reason why you are in this industry? Why you decided to work here, Thea? Can you tell us?
Well, to be honest, I kind of rolled into the topic. So I'm a very curious person. And I ended up at the product development department of ABN AMRO, where it was mainly focused on the payments industry. So it's not as if I was 16 and thought, yes, payments is sexy, I'm going to do something in that area and I want to be successful. And then even in all honesty, since 2015, I've tried to shaken off the payments from my career platter, but I was not successful. And I'm very glad, because it constantly makes me more curious. And same goes for identity, online identity to be more specific. It's such a... it's a very broad sector, so there's a lot to learn. It's constantly changing, either due to rules and regulations, which are normally not the most fun items, but it can also lead to a lot of opportunities. And due to all the market developments, change of the way we look at the world and how we spend and how we act. So a lot of technology aspects are of a big influence of the products that we use. And it just keeps evolving, keeps innovating, and it keeps triggering. And the most interesting thing for me is that even working at CM, where they focus on the connection between the company and the end user, everything is a transaction. So whether or not it's speech, so I call you, or I send a voice message to you, or it's text, like in a text message, but it can be a euro, it can be an identification, or it can be a data attribute. It can be person to person, but it can also be machine to machine. So the possibilities are endless. And if you are creative and willing to seek for adventures, there's so much to learn and so much to discover in this area. If you are open-minded, this is the field I believe you will always stay satisfied.
Thank you, Thea. Monika, what is your why? Why fintech? Why finances?
There would be many whys, I would say. So fintech, as Thea said, it's amazing, very fast. It's absolutely fascinating sector. It's extremely innovative. It's global. As I joined fintech world 12 years ago, I launched a company that was specializing in FX and cross-border payments as advisor, but also as technology provider. When I moved to digital banking, when I moved to banking as a service, I was consulting many companies from investment space, from payment space, from technology space in general. So as you can see, fintech is that complex and global. I was consulting the companies from UK, from Slovakia, from Poland, from Germany, and you can move from one segment to the other with the same interest and the same fascination, because the sector is growing. It's expanding, not just geographically, but as Thea has just said, it's all about technological progress, about the adoption of new services. It's absolutely interesting that we do have impact. We on one hand, we do create the kind of needs. On the other hand, we can respond to the needs of our customers anywhere on the world. Payments, digital banking, fraud detection, lending, insurance. It is that broad that you can find interesting fields in every single segment of the sector.
And there's all these seats at the table. So you can constantly learn. You get new insights.
Yeah.
Because the latest product I launched for cm.com was SoftPOS. It's an application that you download from the marketplaces like Google Play Store, for instance, and you can put it on your PDA or on your smartphone. You have a discussion with a bank who says, "Well, I don't trust it. So can we do the payments? Yes or no?" So they have to make sure that you get licensed. But you have the retailer who has a whole other perspective and point of view on what the customer journey should look like and how it's going to be used. And you are in a festival scene. They have a whole different set of learnings and insights. And then you go to the mobility services. Now, it's just constantly a change in your mind, learning from others, reshaping your solution. And I think that to be open to all the different insights and still stay ahead of course and find your way to contribute and make impact, because I do believe payments might not be as sexy and identity might not be sexy if I talk to all my friends, especially if it's females, but it is very sexy. And sometimes it can be nerdish. If you ask my husband, he thinks I'm a geek, but you do have impact because we all pay, we all transact, and we all want to participate, in different ways.
Absolutely. Even looking at the impact of blockchain technology, cryptocurrencies that do impact unbanked or underbanked societies. For sure. I mean, definitely it's the impact. And as Thea said, we do all challenge each other's. I mean, looking on the competitors, looking on how the market is growing, we do adjust our services and progress with it. I mean, even thinking about the POS, absolutely. Tap to phone solutions now. Absolutely amazing, something new on the market, and we can see how the kind of very well established companies need to also innovate because otherwise they won't be as flexible as all the newcomers on the market or the companies that are very agile in defining the customer's needs and developing very fast the products that can
Yeah. And you
respond.
can use it to support all the sustainability goals as well. Yeah? So
Oh, yeah.
with tap on phone, for instance, you might not need hardware or might not need to buy new ones and throw away old ones. But also I've seen some banks to incorporate different databases that you can see your CO2 footprint based on your transactions. Yeah? So there's a lot of opportunity still to make impact on different aspects of society.
One of them, often when I work with clients, they want to scale. They don't want to limit to one market. They want to go global as it possible, cover as many markets as possible. But what they found difficult to grow, to go international, there are three subjects, three areas that they find as extremely difficult to deal with. And I am interested how you try to your clients, to your business partner, to make this three areas like communication and education your clients about your services, cultural differences. So the way we see money is completely different in different countries, and of course regulatory issues. How you work with it, how you grow or try to grow your businesses or your clients' businesses to move it smoothly. Because often when I talk with our clients, this regulatory issue is really blocking. It's sometimes postponing the launch of the business for not weeks, sometimes it's months. Do you have secret sauce for it? Do you have some hints what projects, what fintech startups can do to don't be, let's say, don't have so much influence from this situation, but to grow faster? Monika, could you start?
All these problems that you just mentioned are very common problems faced by many companies, but these are also very complex topics. When it comes to the regulatory issues, these are definitely very, very big blockers when expanding abroad, because each country has different regulations, jurisdictions, and it also depends in which sector are you active in. Always when I help my customers to prepare some growth strategies or go-to-market strategies, we start from defining which market has the lowest entrance barriers, both in terms of regulations, in the product development, in an adjustment of their services. Then we do check what's the current situation in the market. So how can we mitigate some risks? What kind of challenges do we have on the market? Do we have any so-called low-hanging fruit? Example, a few years ago, I helped Slovakian-based company to enter Polish market with investment products. So they definitely needed the kind of license for intermediary of financial products. So on the one hand, I help them to apply for a license. On the other hand, I help them to buy an entity with an existing license. It was a little bit shortcut, but again, they didn't have to struggle for 12 or 15 months of application procedures. They could buy the company that had existing license. So in some cases, it's looking for the kind of out-of-the-box ideas that can simplify your market entrance. On the other hand, it's the appropriate preparation, which means the cooperation with lawyers, cooperation with the regulatory advisors that can help you to mitigate the risks before you enter the market. Plus, of course, validating if the market of your choice is the best one in terms of your strategy. When it comes to cultural differences, of course, each market is different. Customers in every single region have different requirements, not only in terms of the product itself, but also in the culture, in the mindset. So again, it's all about very good market research and preparation and adjustment the product to the specificity of the market. Preparation of good communication, preparation of some advisors on the market, of your representatives, maybe some first adapters or evangelists that can help you with the faster entrance on the market. And it's all about it's all about addressing the differences that can appear on the market and help to mitigate the risk related with entrance itself.
Yeah, and I believe a local network of people is very important. So especially even if you go abroad, but even if you go to a different sector, the same goes. If you don't understand it and you don't have someone who speaks the same language and who has the experience, then it's going to be more difficult. So I know in the Netherlands we have a lot of, I used translate here because it's like a regional development company supported by the government, where they have specific types of colleagues working on collaborations with foreign countries. They all have a focus on that area and a focus on sector. And that's more specific for startups and scale-ups, because for them it's a bit more difficult to hire the high-priced consultancy companies. So they normally gather a group of people wanting to expand to a certain country in a certain industry. And they plan like a trip once or twice a year to that specific country. And then you have a full booked calendar because you go from meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting. 2 or 3 days in a row, you only have meetings with a lot of people to expand your network, quickly get a first like speed date and an impression on who can help me with what. And then later on establish the relationship. And if you have the right people, if you know people, it is going to help you a lot.
Yeah, definitely so-called door openers that are locals. With knowledge, with connections, I agree with Thea that it's all about networking. It's about good relation and good understanding of the market. Because at the end of the day, you can't roll out the product across Europe without any adjustments, specifications. It's just impossible, especially in this regulated space, which is fintech. So you definitely need to understand customers in this specific area, and you need to have the local knowledge. So many companies, when they do expand abroad, they have the country managers that are the people from the specific country and that are responsible for gathering the entire knowledge from the market.
Yeah.
So let's go further. Let's imagine that we already have startups who has a great communication, perfect regulatory, law on their hands, on their way, perfectly understand the culture. How do we measure the success of these fintech projects? Is this only the bank on what? How much money they have on the bank account? What metrics do you use to check whether the project is perfectly prepared or applied by the market? Thea, how would you measure it? How would you measure the success of the product launch in a certain country or in the business simply?
It actually varies per stage. So if it's a whole new product or product market fit, so if it's a whole new product, then in the beginning the metrics would be just is it working? Can we make it demoable? Can we make it visible to look for clients or pilot clients or to go to demonstrations, presentations, etc. And then the next metric is how do we get as much feedback as possible? And after the next iteration, it will be, is someone willing to pay for this? And do we have enough insights in what value it delivers? And then afterwards, you go to number of transactions or number of encounters or touch points or clients. And then, of course, followed by euros or whatever currency you use. But if you go with an existing product to a new market, then you have all different metrics, of course, because is the whole new product for the company. So is the company already established in the market, and is it just a new product for that market? Or so it's because otherwise you have a lot of branding and establishing of a certain relationship which should have your first attention. And if you're already familiar in the market and it's a new product, then you need to focus on why are you the right company for this product. And you probably have existing clients that you already have established a relationship with, and then you can gather feedback from those clients and set up pilots. So I think the finance part is, of course, very important because it's part of your business case. But the first metrics would be to establish whether or not you have using the right insights. So if the basis is correct, where do you need to adjust, and what timing do you expect to have the first launching customers? That would
Thank
be
you.
my metrics.
Monika,
Yeah.
do you have other metrics? Do you agree? Do you have some? Would you like to add something?
I very much agree with you that it's all about the stage of the product development, of the company growth. It's very much dependent on the specific goals of the project as well, because you can measure customer acquisition. I mean, how many customers the fintech project is able to attract. You can track it through user signups, app downloads, or website visits. You can measure customer retention at the next stage, which means what's the churn rate? How many customers are coming back to our service? Extremely important, as Thea mentioned, is the monetization. So how many customers are willing to pay for our service? And it's not that obvious because when we look even at digital banking space, not that many digital banks are profitable. It means they can have 1 million of customers, but if you would ask what percentage of the users base is active, it means it pays for the services on a regular basis. It's not that much again. So again, monetization, revenue growth. So how fast the revenue is growing from month to month. Cost efficiency, how efficient are we to operate and manage costs, user satisfaction. And it's extremely important to have customers that are satisfied with our services, because then they will be coming back to the service and paying for it. What kind of, and at the end, the market share. So what share of the market do we have? Are we able to capture? So very, very many metrics, as I absolutely agree with Thea, depending on the stage you are and what kind of specific goals do you have, because startups or fintech companies or different stages of investment, for example, around A, B, C, D, they do have different goals. In the first phases, it was 2 years ago about number of customers. And then if you go to the round B, it's all about the monetization, how many customers pay for the services. So the environment has changed as well. So now if you would be fundraising, definitely investors would ask you for the demo or for the working project that gathered some money from the market, but has some first customers, and you can show the proof of monetization. So it's very much changed in the meantime.
And I think there are more aspects bringing to the table where it comes to business case. So where first finance, well, it still is an important metrics, of course, but I do see that business case has been expanded to also impact and on the way of the user. So is the user experience sufficient or preferably above sufficient? So surprising, but also regarding to your other stakeholders. So a lot of questions are asked about the sustainability of the solution. How much energy is it costing, and CO2 does it support or not, and does it help the local environment or the employees, and what are the circumstances? I think that the business case is much more diverse than it has been in the last 10 years.
You work with different projects, different startuppers, different institutions from fintech finance industry. What advice are you usually giving to founders who like to be successful in fintech? What type of skills, abilities, maybe network they should have to grow their companies? What would you say someone who just launched a fintech project, how he or she should perform, what he or she should do to achieve success right now? I know it is a complex question, but I believe that there are some statistics, general ideas you see that are really useful in this industry, that might be overall in the startup industry to grow their business. Monika, do you have some advices you would like to give to such founders?
It is very complex and challenging question. I would go a few steps back. I would definitely talk with a person who wants to launch a fintech product, because if you do launch it, it's I think too late. But if you come up on this idea to launch a fintech product, so definitely you need to understand the market and the customer before starting any fintech company. It's essential to conduct research and understand the market and the customer needs and the environment, regulatory landscape and competitive environment. Do you solve any specific problem and you have any customers that struggle with any problems? Rather than trying to offer a very broad range of services, you definitely need to concentrate. I'm not saying that on niches, it's not a must-have, but you definitely need to concentrate on very specific problems. Technology. Successful entrepreneurs definitely need to stay up to date with the latest technologies, achievement and innovations. Because if you want to be successful in fintech, you need to be successful in developing latest technologies. You need to build a very strong team. Starting as a single founder is huge struggle, really, because you're alone. And if you have any partners that can support you, if you have some competences that you can or knowledge you can share with them, it's definitely much easier to move forward with the product and company growth. So build a very strong team, have a very clear plan and business strategy. So be extremely well prepared for generating revenues, for the out-of-the-box ideas. Have always not just plan B, but also C and D, because you need to be absolutely prepared that it won't be that easy as you have imagined on the start. Be very resilient. Be very adaptable, which means adapt to the changing environment. What I learned from my fintech journey, is the constant. The change is the only constant. So you need to adapt constantly. You need to be very open-minded, and you need to understand that you need to adjust to the changing environment. Definitely communication and networking is extremely important, not just in terms of investment or just funding, but also in finding people who can support you with the knowledge, with experience, with network, so you can also sell thanks to the connections, and they can support you even as mentors. It is extremely important, that kind of knowledge sharing. So in summary, aspiring fintech entrepreneurs should have very clear understanding of the market, consumers, customers, focus on solving specific problems and needs, build strong team, have clear business plan, and be very resilient and patient. Because as Thea said in the beginning, so it's all about patience. Maybe you won't be successful this day, but in a few months of time, in some years, your technology and your customers would find your solution very important for them, and definitely fulfilling all the needs.
Thank you, Monika. I think it is like a guidebook that you just said, just note it, make a list or to-do list, how to, the checklist, how to launch a startup, what you have to prepare.
Yeah, and surround yourself with other startups, because most startups come from the industry they want to launch a product in. So they have the network, hopefully, to test and validate the idea. But there are so many other things that come around the corner where you have to think of that you've never thought of. And if you surround yourself, you have these co-working spaces, incubator kind of surroundings, where you can, with a group, maybe hire someone to give a presentation or to give some legal advice. And because in certain elements you could maybe join forces, so you don't have to do it alone. Certainly don't. And see where you can collaborate, even if you are a totally different kind of startup than your next door neighbor, who is maybe doing something in plants, but can still be very valuable in the more generic steps you have to go through as a company in itself.
Absolutely. Plus pitching. I think that that improving your pitching skills is extremely important, because if you pitch to everyone, from on the conferences, on the pitching competitions, you improve your pitching skills. You get the feedback, and then going to the next investor or to next customer, you are much better than before. So definitely attending many events, many conferences, just getting the knowledge from the market. We have amazing organization Poland called Fintech Poland. So the events organized by Fintech Poland, for example, are amazing opportunity to meet other startups, as Thea said, corporate customers, potential corporate customers, or even representatives from the segments that you are in as a startup as well. And talking with these people, checking how do they react on your idea. It's the knowledge you can't get when you just sit in your own office and just think that it's an amazing idea, but you haven't validated it yet.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah.
Thank you. We need to finish right now because the 1 hour of the webinar is over, and I am so grateful for such a inspiring and full of knowledge and full of insights. And after listening to you, I'm sure that people that think about running a fintech product definitely should watch it, because this is really useful knowledge, like in the bullet points what you should do. So thank you so much for it. So Thea, Monika, to finish, tell our audience where they can find you, and maybe areas that you can help, just to sum up your idea of your skills, your experience. And thank you so much for being us. So Thea, how can others can find you, and what's your specific areas that you can help others with in fintech product?
Thank you for the opportunity. Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. I think that's the most easy way to find me. It's quite difficult because of a typical Dutchy name, Thea van Oosterhout. But if you find me, you'll get an extra prize if you are right to type it right. Yeah? So it's like an extra challenge. My main topics I focus on are product development regarding payments, online identity, and data. So thank you.
Thank you, Monika.
Tia said, so the same by me, LinkedIn. So I think it's the easiest way just to find me, and happy to chat, absolutely. The areas of my competences, go-to-market strategies, monetizations, business modeling, growth models, of course, embedded finance and embedded economy, which are the major topics of my expertise. So very happy to help, and thank you so much, Anita, for the invitation. Thank you so much, Tia, for amazing conversation.
Yeah, thank you. I really enjoyed talking to you and sharing our insights.
So thank you so much for this webinar. Thank you for all the listeners and viewers. We are going to meet next month, where Gosia will run her webinar about men who support women. So it will be also super interesting and super inspiring. So thank you so much, and see you soon.